So, the Championship playoffs, which have provided some of the most iconic moments in football history, let alone EFL history. They see Sheffield United and Bristol City going head to head, and also Sunderland against Coventry. Really interesting pair of games here. And of course, on final day, Coventry managed to get themselves above Bristol City, and they'll take on Sunderland as a result. So those final day games, there was something riding on it in terms of who we'll see take to the field against one another for these semi-finals. We're going to start with Sheffield United against Bristol City, third against sixth. The first leg is on Thursday night, and the second back in Sheffield on Monday night. In the regular season, these two played out two games. One was a 2-1 win for Sheffield United at Ashton Gate, where Bristol City went ahead after 75 minutes. Ryan O'Neill equalised for Sheffield United. Rob Dickey got sent off in the 95th minute, and there was still time for a Harrison Burrows dramatic winner. One of the best games of the season for Sheffield United and their fans, travelling to Bristol City, and one of Bristol City's most painful home defeats. There haven't been very many of those. At Bramall Lane, it was a 1-1 draw, where this time it was Bristol City who got a late equaliser, very, very richly deserved, after possibly one of their most impressive performances of the season on the road. So, George, two very tight games in the regular season. Sheffield United did get 24 more points than Bristol City. Tell me about the Blades and how they're shaping up heading into this.
Well, firstly, you have to confront the fact that when they went to Oxford a day and a month ago, from the moment we're recording this, going into that weekend, they were top of the league. And Sheffield United have ended up missing out on automatic promotions by 10 points. So you have to confront a massive slump when the heat was on the Sheffield United side. They lost to Oxford, they lost to Millwall, and then they lost to Plymouth. 3 consecutive games. They then won a game, and then they went to Burnley in a match they had to win in order to maintain any hope of finishing in the top 2. And they lost it. So after such an impressive season where they did incredibly well to keep pace with those two teams at the top, there has been a moment already in recent history where they have wilted when the pressure has been on. Or is that not necessarily the case? The other way to look at it is that they were playing so well and the underlying numbers suggested it was unsustainable, and it eventually caught up with them, and there isn't anything psychological to worry about in what they did. The answer is probably somewhere in between. I think when you consider the teams they lost to, especially in Oxford and Argyle, they're not teams that Sheffield United should be losing to. They're teams that Sheffield United should probably have wanted to be playing at that stage of the campaign. I think when assessing their shape coming into this game, we have to probably kind of give it a bit of an uptick in terms of had they hosted Blackburn on final day with an opportunity to finish in the top 2 and squandered it, then you'd be really concerned. Then you wouldn't know how they're going to bounce back from that. But in reality, they pretty much knew this before going to Turf Moor. They put the 2 defeat, which was by far and away their best performance, their 4 lost games, you have to say as well, when they went to Burnley and really took the game to them and came away second best. They then beat Stoke away from home 2-0 live on Sky, and they put in an okay display, having made 7 changes on final day at home to Blackburn. You'd think they would be over any kind of malaise that might have set in off the back of missing those games. There's also like an experience factor here where there's quite a lot of continuity from players who are part of the Paul Heckingbottom side that won promotion out of this league 2 seasons ago, and the squad we have here. There's also been a lot of churn. Like there's equal in parts, I guess. Seeing players who've remained there and players who
can that both be true? Loads of continuity and loads of churn.
What I mean is, because if I'm getting to my point, so like players like Ahmed Hodzic and players like Robinson who've kind of been there and done it. But also, if you look at the players they brought in, now some of these will feature heavily, and some of these will play a bit part. But you've got Michael Cooper, who was the main reason why Plymouth Argyle won the league and came out of League One a couple of seasons ago. You've got Tom Cannon and Hamza Chowdhury, who last season were part of the Leicester squad, who won the league, getting promoted out into the Premier League. You've got Kiefer Moore and Harrison Clark. Clark won't play, but will feature in the squad. Moore might well start. These are 2 players who are part of the Ipswich side who won promotion to the Premier League last season. So they have players who have recently won promotions and 4 players who won promotion out of this league last season. So there is like that experience factor that couples in with the depth they've got generally. Now, the one thing that we have to mention with Blades, even though I would give it next to zero relevance and importance as to their chance of getting out of the league this time around, is their horrendous playoff record, right? They have never won promotion out of the playoffs. They've been relegated in the playoff game before, and they've never been promoted in a playoff game. They've been in 8 different playoffs. They've reached 4 finals. 5 of these playoffs were in the Championship. They last got in the Championship playoff final in 08-09. They lost it to Burnley 1-0. So that this record that they have in the playoffs is obviously horrendous. Blades fans therefore believe it's kind of nigh on impossible that they will do it. I would, if pushed, go the other way and say no team has an identity coursing through their veins that prevents them from being able to win knockout competition in order to get promoted out of a league. Eventually, Sheffield United will win a playoff campaign. There's no reason at all why it won't be this one, and it will in no way factor in my thinking as to who I think will win the playoffs. Also, Sam, who runs our Substack, who runs The Pinch, who's a Blades fan, made the point that actually it kind of gives it even more incentive. Like, not only could Chris Wilder be the man to take Sheffield United back up to the Premier League again, because they keep getting promoted every time they come down, but he could actually be the first Blades manager to win the playoffs, and that in itself is probably even like as big an opportunity for him to write himself into the photo of the club even further than he already has. Exactly, add to his legacy. Wilder is the only manager in the playoffs that has a promotion to his name. If you look at the other 3 managers, we've got Régis Lebris, who was at Lorient in the top league, and then they got relegated. Frank Lampard, who came close with Derby but hasn't achieved it. And Liam Manning, who came close to MK Dons but hasn't achieved it. Not only is Wilder the only manager in the playoffs with promotion, he has loads of them. Like, he has been promoted basically everywhere he's ever been and is a serial winner. And you have to think going into the playoffs, beyond the 24-point advantage, beyond the obvious player advantage they have in terms of the quality of their squad, having Wilder in the dugout must be a positive for them too. When it comes down to the shape and the formation and the personnel, I think they're the hardest team in the whole of the playoffs to land on exactly how they're going to play. We've seen them play 4-2-3-1. We've seen them play 4-4-2. They have just a stupid amount of players and players who seem to kind of get chopped and changed between consistently. My guess is it'll probably be 4-2-3-1. I would have thought the right back position is an interesting one where they have basically 4, because Chowdhury often plays there. Siriki came off injured, so he looks unlikely to feature. Gilchrist has barely played since the turn of the year. He came back into the side on final day. Clark is basically unfancied, having been brought in. He played in the Argyle game and hasn't been seen since. So my hunch is that probably Chowdhury plays there, with Peck and Vinny playing as the midfield too. The other option is out wide, where Harmer has kind of made that left wing position his own, even though you feel like it's not really the position that he should be playing. Brereton Diaz playing off the right, which again, you kind of, when you've got Brooks and you've got Raksaki, who are more natural wide players, but Wilder seems to favour them with those players coming off the bench. Who does he play up front? He's got Cannon, he's got Moore, he's got Campbell, he's got Brewster. Like his options there are absolutely ridiculous. Again, my hunch is that it probably will be either Cannon or Moore, depending on what kind of physicality that he's after. But it's just such a stacked squad and such a stacked team for the level. And, you know, coming into it, they are favourites, 7-4 favourites to AK bets, and I find it impossible for anyone to argue that they shouldn't be.
Bristol City host them in the first leg, a Bristol City side whose identity, whether it was internet memes or perhaps how it had started to feel for their fan base, was that they were always a championship mid-table team until they weren't. This is their first playoff appearance since 2008. They lost in the final to Hull City. On Christmas Day, Bristol City were 12th in the Championship. It felt like another season, finishing broadly 12th. They were 8 points off the playoffs. But since Christmas Day, 41 points from 24. Borough dropped away. West Brom dropped away. And Bristol City capitalised. They ended the season, though, with a loss at Luton, a really heavy loss at Leeds, and then that home draw to Preston on final day where they were 2-0 down. You know, the onus was on them to tuck Preston away and secure their playoff spot and head into the playoffs looking comfy, and with those defeats in the rearview mirror, it wasn't really how it worked. Obviously, the turnaround was exciting. The vibes were immaculate at full time, and Ross McCrory is an absolute legend of Bristol City now with those 2 goals. But, you know, the goals that they conceded were pretty unimpressive. But the fact that they are in the playoffs is highly impressive. The man that masterminded it, Liam Manning, only 39 still, Manning, at his third club, obviously having done MK Dons, having done Oxford, and now Bristol City. His playoff experience boils down to one appearance where he lost to Gareth Ainsworth's Wickham. This is going to be very different to that. Manning is, by contrast to Wilder, not a big character, pretty quiet. Doesn't like drawing attention to himself if he can help it. His attention to detail is what he's known for as a coach on the training pitch. Kind of Eddie Howe vibes is probably the best way of summing it up if you're not someone that follows the Championship too closely. A real tactician as well. And he's put together a playoff team that's definitely not a playoff team in terms of individual talent, in terms of the squad at his disposal. Definitely not. And that's a reflection of the exceptional job that he's done and the fact that he's built a team that's better than the sum of its parts. And that is all you can really ask of a manager when you really boil it down. That is what you want them to do. The team is very well organised in his image. They very rarely lose their shape completely. They are not loose either in or out of possession particularly. He's been playing three at the back shape defensively in recent weeks. They've got quite a few defensive absences, which has limited what Manning can do really, both in terms of defensive personnel and in the wide areas too. It's been Tanner, Dickey and Vine at the back three, Pring and Sykes both injured, probably their starting wing-backs in this formation. So Hirakawa is the right wing-back at the moment and probably their main wide attacking threat. And you can expect most of their attacking play to come down the right-hand side. They'll be targeting Harrison Burrows in particular and Gus Harmer, who I think a lot of clubs have targeted this season. And in many instances, they've stood up to that. But the perception is that is the weaker side for Sheffield United defensively. And McCrory, the left wing-back, he's a right footer. He's definitely not a natural left wing-back, but he's carved himself out quite a nice little role as a goal scorer in this team, and they don't have many of them. But a real back post threat, really physical, runs all day, and has shown some pretty nice finishes with both feet as well. They're fairly methodical in possession, Bristol City. They're not dynamic, heavy metal, really, blood and thunder type stuff. They don't rush things. When they have the ball in settled possession, they can play some really nice short passing interplay. They've scored some great team goals this season. Preston away, Max Birds in particular. Sheffield United away actually was an excellent one as well. QPR away not long ago as well, finished off by Earthy. So they're decent in settled possession, but they're not a team that create loads and loads. They do create shots, a lot of shots from turnovers and transition moments. Big feature of their game. Certainly not a super high press, but just really well organised and very adept at creating shots when they win the ball back. So something for Sheffield United to watch for sure. There is a red flag, George, that I didn't necessarily even know about before I did the prep, and that is that Bristol City, despite this kind of famous playoff dash, successful playoff dash, have only kept 2 clean sheets in 20 league games, and over their last dozen league games, a negative goal difference. So the fact is, they're not a terrific attacking team, and they're actually worse defensively than I'd realised. The star player is Jason Knight, an unbelievable player who has got so much better than I thought he would since joining Bristol City. Has become such a more rounded, all-round midfield player. Has played every minute of every game this season at such intensity, and is certainly the star man. And I'd really love him to have 2 strong games so that the wider Championship public can kind of come to understand just how good he is. But it's going to be really, really interesting. They don't have loads of goal scorers, quite a lot of pressure on Naki Wells up front, who's wily and experienced, good movement if he doesn't necessarily have the acceleration of yesteryear, but he is a solid finisher if he gets chances. And there's a few different options that Manning can go with in attacking positions, whether it's Mehmeti or Twine or Earthy on loan from West Ham, all capable of good moments without being consistent output guys in terms of goals and assists. A good record at home, so they go to Ashton Gate with the 4th best home record over the course of the season, only lost 3 and all of them by 1 goal. I think they need to win at Ashton Gate to have a chance of going through here, and I think if they do, Sheffield United know that they can be an awkward opponent at Bramall Lane because they have been already this season. However, it feels like you're leaning Sheffield United's way, and I am too. I don't expect an upset here. I don't expect a 6th place team to beat a 3rd place team in this instance. I think Sheffield United's player quality should tell across the 2 games, particularly in attacking areas. The difference in what these 2 managers have is absolutely stark. And I'm just not sure that this is actually the best version of Bristol City heading into the playoffs, which is sad, really. A lot down to absences and maybe some of the effort expended in getting there in the first place. If they get through, put it this way, it's going to be a Liam Manning masterclass, and I certainly wouldn't hate to see it, but I think Sheffield United will progress.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, from a betting perspective, there isn't much in this tie in that regard because they are, as you'd expect, very short to do so. 8-15 with AK bets, and I probably wouldn't put you off, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and put up an 8-15 shot. The worry for me and the kind of surprise to me is that Liam Manning, as a manager, and I've spoken about it a lot on this show, has always had a very good record against high possession teams, good teams, because of the way that he sets his team up. Whereas this season's been very, very different. The only game that Bristol City have won against other teams in the top 6, so 5th and upwards, was a 2-1 win over Sunderland 2 weeks ago. And Sunderland, as we'll get onto in a second, as of late, have not been in any way, shape or form a top 6 team. Their performance levels, their results, nothing has been. They played them at a time where they were resting players. You can basically ignore that. In which case, the record against the top teams reads 4 draws and the rest defeats. That's a massive concern to me. I mean, the way I'm looking to play this from a betting perspective would be to go kind of find a low goals angle. Two managers who I think the onus will be on to stay in the tie, who naturally playoff games are incredibly low scoring, and I think it's imperative for both teams. Certainly Bristol City might open up a little bit in the second half because they know they don't want to go to Bramall Lane. They'd love to go to Bramall Lane ahead, even if it's by a solitary goal. But I think the name of the game for this to start will be to stay in the game. I can't imagine it's going to be a particularly riveting watch for that reason. In O'Leary and Cooper, you've got 2 very capable keepers too. The 11-8 about a 0-0 draw at half time is probably what appeals to me here. It's not the sexiest. It might mean that if you're watching it in the pub and it's a drab game, at least you can get excited by the first half being drab. And I think there's probably a bit of value in that, and generally kind of going low for goals anyway. The only other one for people who want a bigger price thing is if Scott Twine starts. I'm pretty sure the bet will be voided if he doesn't, or maybe just check the rules with AK bets there if he does come off the bench. But if Twine does start, he's 28-1 to score a free kick. He's scored 2 already this season.
Best free kick taker in the world.
Yeah, he will score loads more in his career. And the fact he's only scored 2 this season from, I think it's 16 attempts, probably means he's due fairly soon. And I can guarantee you that if Twine's on the pitch and they get a free kick within 30 yards, he is going to shoot. I think that if you see the teams on Thursday night and Twine is in the starting lineup, have a look on the AKBet site and see if that's still there, because that shouldn't be that big. Put it this way, he scored 2 already this season. Those prices give him a 1 in 28 chance of scoring every time he plays. There's no way that tracks across his career. Not a chance.
Probably quite a few Sheffield United fans listening to this, probably relatively happy with what you've heard. Come and see us live at the Crucible, 5th of July, in your great city of Sheffield. We'll be doing a live show. There'll be some Blades chat. There'll be some Sheffield Wednesday chat as well. But there'll be plenty of other juicy EFL stuff in there as well. So anyone listening, frankly, come see us play the Crucible on the 5th of July, 3 p.m. kickoff, beers after. See you there. Sunderland and Coventry. This is fascinating. It's one of those kind of sneaky rivalries that a lot of neutral fans don't know about, and it goes back a long time. But it also has a lot of relevance over the last few years, where these two teams have obviously met each other in the Championship a good few times over the last few years. And I'm expecting this to be an incredible playoff semi-final tie from a neutral point of view. Two teams who, at their best, can be very exciting attacking teams, and who, might be handcuffed by the nerves of the playoffs, but also should play out one of the more entertaining Championship semi-final ties that we've seen for a while. The first leg's on Friday night in Cov. The second leg at the Stadium of Light on Tuesday night. They drew 2-2 at the Stadium of Light. Cov came roaring back from 2-0 down to draw that one. And Coventry beat Sunderland 3-0 handily not that long ago at the CBS. On Sunderland, the big question, and probably the most I've ever wondered this about a team heading into the playoffs, George, is can a previously very good team for the level that is in really poor shape form-wise heading into it turn the tap back on? When it comes down to it, now that they have spent the last couple of months waiting for the playoffs. That was the situation as they dropped away from the top two, but they were, comfy inside the playoff places. Can you turn the tap back on when you need to? Because they started the season so well. Regis Lebris's young team was taking the league by storm. I was falling head over heels for them, tipping them to finish second in our mid-season predictions at the turn of the year. They were top of the table at the second international break, 4 points clear, in fact, after winning 9 of their first 12. They had a bit of a wobble where they drew 5 out of 6 and lost the other, but then recovered well, winning 8 of their next 14. And the 2 games against the 2 automatically promotion teams are fresh in my mind here. They drew 0-0 with Burnley in January. They were the better side at Turf Moor. Isidore missed 2 penalties. You wonder how differently this season could have looked had he taken one of those penalties or both, and they'd won that game. He also put them 1-0 up at Ellen Road with an incredible goal. A period where we thought Isidore was potentially the best striker in the Championship with what he was doing. And when they went 1-0 up at Leeds, I felt like they were up there with Burnley, with Sheffield United, with Leeds, and they lost that game late in heartbreaking circumstances. They followed it up with a home defeat to Hull City, and the wheels really fell off. At that point, they were 10 points off second. 13 games since then, the final quarter of the season, Sunderland, 4 wins, 2 draws, and 7 defeats. Going forward, this is way worse than I realised. Mate, they've scored 9 goals in their last 14 league games. But not only that, the last 4 goals that they've scored, which have come over 10 games, have been Mayenda's solo effort where he ran 90 yards against Bristol City, took on the whole defence on the break and scored. A Tri-Hume free kick from wide that kind of flew through the hands of the goalkeeper. A Tri-Hume set-piece back post volley. Lovely routine, lovely take. No issues there. And a Romain Mundell insane curling shot from wide, which curled into the top corner. He scores a couple of those a season, but you can't rely on it. Those are their 4 goals they've scored against 10 games, across 10 games. Where are the normal goals? Where are the goals where Sunderland build possession, move it out to the right, get Rigg and Roberts combining, get a ball across and Isidore near post finishes? Where's Bellingham breaking from midfield and finishing, having arrived late into the box from a cutback from the left-hand side? Where's the left winger, whether it's Mundell or Watson or whoever, Lefay, dribbling into the box, driving, being direct, getting shots off and scoring goals? Like where are the set-piece goals outside of, frankly, quite random Tri-Hume double? I don't understand what's happened here. Isidore misfiring, has lost his place in the team. I'd be really interested to see if Lebris turns back to him or whether he goes with Mayenda. They did have problems down the left side with injuries at left backs and left wingers. Everyone was out, and they're now back. So they've got Sirkin back now. They've got Lefay back now. He's able to play 90. The team is pretty much full strength heading into the playoffs, and that's got to be a positive for Sunderland fans because we know what they look like when this group of players are playing well, with Rigg and Roberts combining on the right of the attack, with Lefay on the left, a sparkling player for this level whose injury was unfortunate, with 09 and Mepham, who've developed a pretty good relationship at centre-back, Neil and Bellingham in midfield as well. I would just highlight the goalkeeper Patterson, who I've generally been a defender of and a supporter and a fan of Patterson's. I think the last few months, it's notable how poor he's been. He gets beaten from range a lot. I've noticed some quite weird handling of crosses, whether it's coming when he shouldn't and being out of position, or whether it's just not handling it well at all. It's I wish I could be more positive. I really would love to see Sunderland sparkle because they're such a great team and they've got so many exciting young players. But that good form is a long way off. So can they muster it? Were they just killing time, resting, rotating, not overexerting? Or have they just lost their confidence, lost their touch? Can they turn the tap back on? It's a pretty big question, George, with Coventry licking their lips about this home first leg.
Yeah, it is for sure. It does remind me. It's funny. There is similarities. Obviously, the drop off is by no way as big. But there were obviously concerns at Southampton last season when they lost. Was it 4 games before beating Leeds on final day? And you do wonder how important, maybe looking back, that win against Leeds may have been in order to kind of rebalance, rather than, I kind of said it at the time, like for Lebris to come out before the Oxford game and say, yeah, that's over now. We're gonna try. We're gonna pick our best team, and then to lose in the way that they have, in the manner they have, and not show any kind of signs of life in the Oxford and QPR games it's a big concern. With Coventry, this is it's been a topsy-turvy couple of seasons for them. They had this incredible rise under Mark Robins from League Two into the Championship. They lost the Championship playoff final in the worst possible way on a penalty shootout. They then got to an FA Cup semi-final when they were in a position of looking like they were going to get into the playoffs this time last year. They lost that in the worst possible way against Manchester United in the penalty shootout. Their league form understandably then completely tailed away and they ended up finishing nowhere near the playoffs, even though they were so close with a couple of weeks left to go of the season. They then start the season, this campaign, when everyone thinks they're going to kick on again, as they always do, as they always improve year on year. And for some reason, the results just don't come. Adi Vivesh, the Mark Robins' assistant, left. The underlying numbers, as we spoke about at the time, we did a FotMob corner on it, remained pretty good, but the results just didn't improve. And eventually, it got fairly toxic quite late on between the owner, Doug King, and Mark Robins, where after Robins was sacked, he then did this kind of press conference, or fans forum, I guess it was, almost kind of digging out Robins. And he appointed Frank Lampard. And it kind of felt like neutrals watching that fans forum took the side of Mark Robins, and neutrals who saw the appointment of Frank Lampard scoffed. Whereas Coventry fans who, for the most part, listened to what Doug King had to say about Mark Robins and kind of bought it, and they bought into Frank Lampard. And all results-based evidence suggests they were right to do so, because it's absolutely unbelievable what's happened there since. They were 2 points above the drop zone when Lampard came in, and they've ended up finishing 5th. It's quite weird, though. When you look at the actual points haul, they've got 52 points from 29 games, which is 4th in the league. It's still a way off the kind of the top few teams. It's obviously really impressive and a massive step up on what they were doing before. But I kind of expected it to be a bit more. And I think there's an element here where teams who started the season really well and likely to be playoff contenders, West Brom, Norwich, but Middlesbrough, they all kind of all together managed to completely throw away really strong positions, and it therefore didn't take as much as you probably would have expected it to do in order to improve their league position as much as they did. And the caveat here is that if you look at the Coventry's underlying numbers, if you look at the XG data over the course of the season, it remains pretty steady. Like, there is a chance here that we are witnessing just a really clear-cut kind of variance going on in front of our eyes, with Frank Lampard and Joe Edwards being the beneficiaries of that. We have to say they are one of the most efficient teams at creating and scoring headed chances that I've ever seen. It's extraordinary. 6 headed shots so far this season is 10 more than anyone else. 19 headed goals is 6 more than anyone else. They're second for, if you take 2025 as standalone, so getting rid of the kind of the Robins era and the first few weeks of Lampard's tenure, they've got the second best set piece expected goals in the division. When you've got players like Bobby Thomas, who's obviously scored a lot of goals recently, Jack Rodoni, who's very good in the air, Haji Wright, Ellis Sims, it makes sense to be a side that look to utilise that. But it's also important to note that they're not just they're not a side that look to get it wide and get crosses in the box from deep. Like, they still use their wide players effectively. They pass through the lines. The one thing that's really stark to me and really interesting is that watching Lampard at Derby, watching his Chelsea teams, even watching his Everton team, it felt like just pressing was the name of the game for Lampard, and he believed that a kind of an aggressive, effective press was half the battle. And we're not really seeing that with Coventry. Their pressing numbers are kind of middle of the range. They're by no means a passive side, and they play a pretty high line, but it's definitely not the case that we're seeing just this rabid press without much structure, which has tended to be the undoing of a lot of Lampard teams in the past. So
I think that might be the era of the Championship now compared to then. I don't think there are that many really heavy pressing teams in the same way that we saw 5 years ago when Bielsa and Kloppo were all the rage, because I think teams have realised the downsides to it, maybe both physical and tactical, and now we see, and I mentioned it with Liam Manning and maybe Coventry are the case as well, most teams frankly are pretty, they are in position to win the ball back and attack very quickly without necessarily just herring around the pitch with their strikers pressing everyone to death and hoping to win it, inside the penalty box. I think that's, and we have to, recognise that Joe Edwards, who had a go at senior management with Millwall last season in the Championship and is widely believed to be, a real coach, tactician type as well, and helps Lampard a lot with that. He might be having an impact here, in the same way that Alan Knill and Chris Wilder have that relationship too. And Adi Viveash and Mark Robins, quite frankly.
And I think that's what, especially with Lampard, we can talk about his own managerial ability, but I think, probably you have to look at the Jody Morris teams and the Joe Edward team as being maybe separate ones. But it's they're a side who we should also say the form hasn't been great, but at home they're really strong, and I think it really in my mind at least, it really suits Coventry that they're playing home first, because this gives them an opportunity to put themselves. Often it's always said that you want to be away first and home second, so that the decisive tie can be in front of your own fans. But I think Coventry will feel like they can go from being the outsiders in this tie to the favourites, and take a decent lead to the Stadium of Light. They've only lost 2 games at home, dating back to November the 23rd. Those were against Leeds and Burnley. They have beaten sides comfortably at home consistently. They score a lot of goals, and in my mind at least, a Sunderland side who've shown absolutely nothing recently, travelling to a Coventry side who are so rampant at home. I'm pretty confident with this that we'll see Coventry take a lead to the Stadium of Light, and my kind of betting pick here would be Coventry to win the first game at 7-5. Like, I'm surprised there is bigger price as that. I'd find it very, very difficult to have any confidence whatsoever in Sunderland's ability to. I'd have to see it first, and I am reminded that quite often there's been a lot of talk about Sunderland having a mid-season, pre-season, and often you do watch teams first game of the season, like especially teams you support in particular, and you're just like, it's just a different sport, isn't it, when it matters? Like, it's a different sport when you don't care about getting injured. It's a different sport when the actual impetus is there and the stakes are high. But before parting with any cash, you'd have to see it first, I think. And right now, there's an element, I think, that Sunderland are being priced up to improve. They're being priced up to be a different side when they take to the pitch for this first leg. I don't see any reason why we'd have to think that that'll happen, and I'm happy to take the 7-5 that Coventry will continue to pile on the misery for them.
Yeah, I think we'll know, won't we? Half an hour into the first leg, maybe earlier, if Sunderland have turned the taps back on. And for me, it's not just a sense of impetus. It's not a sense of motivation. It's just the partnerships on the pitch. It's how easy the game is coming to them. How easy those patterns of play that look so sharp, and those counter-attacks that look so good. The movement off the ball and the vision to find good runs that we saw loads in the first half of the season, whether they can just click that back into gear. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I think they might struggle at the CBS. I know Coventry's away form is poor, but I think they win this over the 2 legs. And frankly, I'll be picking Coventry to beat Sheffield United in the playoff final as well. That's my championship playoff prediction. And my betting pick for the championship is Coventry to win promotion to the Premier League, to win at Wembley at the third time of asking over the last 3 years. I think they'll play Sheffield United in the final, and I don't think there's a lot between the two teams. So I'm not going to lie and say I think Coventry will win comfortably. I think they're miles the better side. I think they are really well matched. The game that they played at Bramall Lane a couple of months ago, which Sheffield United won 3-1, started brilliantly in terms of a matchup and very evenly. And Gus Harmer scored a free kick from 25-30 yards to put Sheffield United ahead. Coventry didn't respond well. Sheffield United did the business and killed the game off. I don't necessarily see it as a case of, if they play again, that exact result will be repeated because it's already happened before. I think that Coventry are a really good matchup for Sheffield United from a Coventry point of view. And I would expect a really good playoff final with goals for both teams. And I'll probably, because I really do think there's barely anything between them. Sheffield United a shorter price, and given that I think it could go all the way to penalties, for example, I'll be picking Coventry to win the Championship playoffs at 3-1 with AK bets.
I'm picking Sheffield United to win the playoffs with AK bets as my pick. Since actually we started recording, AK of AK Bet's fame has messaged saying that they're going top price, industry top price 9-5 about Sheffield United to win the playoffs, which is just a tad bigger than the 7-4 I mentioned earlier. I think it's a massive price. With the playoffs, it kind of feels like you can't really price them short enough. Like, it's obviously the price of them to qualify and then to win the final as a double, or whatever their forecast to win the double in the final. If it's Sunderland, Sheffield United, then I think we probably know at that stage that Sunderland have improved. But I just think that Blades' underlying numbers for a lot of the season have suggested they're not as good as the top two, and that's been borne out. But I don't think it necessarily means that they aren't a lot better than these three. I think there's a massive advantage from the dugout, as mentioned with Wilder. I think there are probably 5 or 6 players who won't get on the pitch in their games who would walk into all three of these other sides, as is the depth and quality at their disposal. And I know it's not the fanciest price, it's just short than 2-1, but yeah, I think they're well clear, and the quality and the experience, as I say, running through this squad as well in terms of winning promotions recently, will be the deciding factor. So I think they'll beat Bristol City. It might follow the same pattern as what we saw last season, where it's a tight first leg, and then they'll roll them over at home, and then I expect them to beat whoever's in front of them at Wembley. As I say, I would personally definitely be with Coventry in the other semi, but I'd almost, sitting here now, be more concerned if it's Sunderland, because that means that we've seen Sunderland put their recent form behind them.
Well, there you go. Those are our predictions and our betting picks for the Championship playoffs. Let us know what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, please do drop us a like and subscribe to the channel. Plenty more where this comes from, and League 1 and League 2 to follow.